Hello, everybody. Oh, Natalie, I was thinking of you today because I was with a guest at the Eiffel Tower, and I remember our visit in the Eiffel Tower. Hello, Stefan, Mike, Doris, Ella, Diana. Who else? Wendy, Linda, Brenda, Bra, Graham, Darby, Coralie, Robin, Stephen, Audrey, Alison, Jim, Adrian. Hello, Suzanne, to Palm Springs, Sonia. Hello, everybody. So, waiting a bit more people. We are very lucky because the weather is fantastic. They were forecasting rain. So I took my umbrella, but my umbrella is still in my bag. I'm fine, Linda. Thank you. I've been doing a walking tour with two people from Los Angeles, and so it has been how can I say, tiring day since 9 a.m. this morning, but it's good. Hello, Dre. We have been visiting a lot on Montmartre, on Notre Dame, on the Saint-Chapelle, on the boat cruise. So, lots of things we did today. So, we're going to start in a couple of minutes, just waiting everybody getting connect. Beautiful for you, Consuelo. It is beautiful here to look at it. You see? Isn't it a beautiful day? Well, the sun is gently setting, but not now. It's going to set in 2 hours and a half. So far, it's just a bright, sunny end of afternoon. And I'm just standing by the river, waiting for the rest of the group and to start the tour. So today, my friends, we're going to speak about the Second World War, and especially about the liberation, the freedom of Paris. And so we're going to do the tour about that. And I'm by the riverbank because we're going to do the tour in the island, because I think the island is maybe the most important part for the freedom of Paris, because we are not far away from the city hall. We are close from Notre Dame. And of course, we are very close for what I always call the Parisian Fort Alamo, which is in fact the big kind of fortress which is inside Paris, and which used to be a fortress in the Middle Age, and which has been also a fortress at the day of the liberation. We're going to speak about all that. So let's start the tour. If some are new with me, my name is Patrick, and I'm a tour guide in Paris. So I hope you're going to enjoy this tour, and that you're going to have a nice moment with me. Okay, and even though we're going to speak about a subject which is not that nice because it is the war, like, oh, it's a lovely afternoon, even though that war finished well, um, even though we had to suffer and we lost, of course, lots of people in this war. So let's start right now. I'll just have a look at the boat arriving to the river. This is not a riverboat cruise. That boat is carrying goods inside. So always when I start this tour, I just post one pictures which is important for me. Uh, this is the pictures of my father, who has been doing the resistance in Paris, and who also, visiting in Brittany and then coming to Paris. And then when he was in Paris, he was there the day of the liberation. And so always I've got a thought for him when I do this tour, and a thought for him and his war companion. And pictures couples of years later with my father, with two of the rest of the groups. The other one were dead in front of the panel where they met some important things for the resistance during the Second World War. So this is just, of course, some souvenir for me. And when we speak about the Second World War, the resistance, and the liberation of Paris, of course, I'm giving a little hello to him. So what's happened? Let's walk from here to the other side of the river, and then just to explain you what's happened at that time. Thank you, Stephen. So we are in June 1940. Everything is fine in Paris, but since one year nearly, we have got what we call the funny war. The funny war means that we have got a war which is not a war. We are in war with Germany, but Germany hasn't moved to France, and France hasn't moved to Germany. That's why we call it the funny war. I mean, the weird war, I should say, maybe more in English. And suddenly, in June 1940, we're going to have the visit of this guy, Adolf Hitler, who is coming to Paris and taking the pictures in front of the Eiffel Tower. And of course, he has been forwarded by his German troops. So, in a couple of days, France is going to be invited. France is going to ask for a ceasefire. Germans are going to make a parade on the Champs-Élysées. Hitler is going to make these propaganda pictures, and we're going to start 4 years and 2 months of Nazi occupation in Paris. So we're going to have to wait altogether 50 months to be free about the Nazi occupation, which is, of course, a lot of months to wait for that. So the Nazi arrived here beginning of June, and part of the French decided to go in the resistance. They decided not to follow the orders of the person who was going to be in charge of France, meaning Maréchal Pétain, who was just a puppet in the hand of the Nazi, and they are going to follow another man, another soldier, who is named General de Gaulle. And General de Gaulle, he's gone to England, so part of the French, and the French army said he was a traitor, but of course he wasn't. Let me play for you a part of the speech that he said the 18th of June 1940. He's on the BBC. All the French and all the English and everywhere who is French speaker can hear that speech, and that speech is going to be very important. So let's listen it. So I hope you could hear it because Suzanne said she couldn't hear. What is important in that talk? First, I wanted you to listen the voice of General de Gaulle, exactly like if you were in June 1940 in France or in England or somewhere in the French territory, and that suddenly you hear that man telling you there is a hope. This is what is so important, the fact there is a hope. Because, you are invited by the Nazi. You have somewhere in your village, somewhere in your city, somewhere in another country, and you want to resist. But you think, how can me alone, I can do something against this huge army? And in fact, the goal is going to make this speech. You see here on the wall, we have got this little plaque, which is in fact the tribute and the summarize of the speech that I made you listen. You find this little plaque in many, many places in Paris to remember the speech of the 18th of June of de Gaulle. On this plaque, it said what you heard on the phone, meaning that we have to resist. And that's going to be very important because as we have got someone who said, if you resist, you won't be alone. You are not going to fight by yourself, but you are going to be in the middle of a kind of a dark, of a shed arm in a shadow army, but you are going to fight. You can join the resistance. And that is going to be if I can say, the start of the real resistance. After that speech, a lot of French people said we can do something. But to be honest, if we think about the French people, I should say that 10% are going to be collaborating with the Nazi. 10% are going to be in the resistance, and 80% are just going to try to survive, and especially here in Paris. So it's not black or white, there's a lot of gray area. And at the end, when Paris has been free, suddenly we have got something like 50% of the people said, I'm resistant. But honestly, only 10% of the French population were resisting. But that was important. Even if it was 10%, it was a hope for France. And also, a lot of people, a lot of French moved to England to be able to join the French Free Army of de Gaulle. But for the rest of the people, in June 1940, which are going to stay in Paris, they are going to have got 50 months of hell. Of course, more you go to some community, like the Jewish community, like the Gypsy community, like the communists, like the homosexual or whatever, you are going to be more in danger because the Nazis are going to target these people that they consider to be undermen, submen, by men, I mean a human being. Doesn't matter if you are a man or if you are a woman. And for the rest of the people which are not targeting, which can live, I should say, a Catholic white Caucasian who is working in a butchery, okay? Just somebody simple like that, or who is a carpenter. So for these people who are in fact normal people, the situation in Paris is going to be terrible. Why that? Let me show you an image of what during that time you can have. Sorry, the image is going to be upside down. You will have to turn it a little bit. You see, that's what you can have for one person per day to feed yourself. So you see, the quantity is so small. It means the people here in Paris are going to suffer of lack of food. Yes, ration. And it's not because you have the right to get that you get it. Because then you have to get, as Natalie said, you have to take this ticket that also was in England or some other countries, which is called the rationing ticket. So with this ticket, you get, you go to the shop, You give your ticket, or what I show you is my family ticket, okay? This is one of my rationing card for my family. So you have to go to the shop and you give the ticket, and with that ticket, you can get some food if they have. So first, you have to register yourself to the city hall. And that's very important because when you register yourself, they are going to ask you how many people are with you. What is your religion? What is your job? So it means they're going to get information about you. Then you come back home with your rationing ticket, and then you try to go to a shop and you try to hope that you can get the food if there is some food in the shop. So the situation is going to be terrible. Don't forget also that the people don't have coal, they don't have wood. So it means when the winter is going to come, the first winter of June 40 in Paris, the people are going to have no food and nothing to warm themselves at home. What was it? Because the Nazi took the food and the material for themselves. So yes, so I'm in front of Notre Dame. I'm going to explain you why I'm in front of Notre Dame. Yes, yes, Jim. In fact, the Nazi decided to take all the coal for their own engine or for their own needs. So first, they were taking all the resource for them for their own purpose, and then they were leaving the rest for the civil population. And of course, they had much more important needs than the civil population, so the civil population were suffering. Second thing, what is very important in Paris, my father when the Nazi arrived in Paris, he was in Paris, okay, because my grandmother moved from Brittany to Paris. So he was one of these young Parisians who saw the German arrive. And the German made a decision. They said, okay, all the French people, French boys, which are valid and which are under the age of to go to the army, they are not going to go to the army. They are going to join what the German call the compulsory works, and you are going to come with us in Germany, and you are going to work either in a farm or in a factory to replace the German boys which are fighting for Germany. So in fact, they are going to, let's say, kidnap the young boy and the men and send them to Germany. And so if you wanted to avoid that, you have to leave, but you have to leave and you have to become in the clandestinity. Meaning, that's what my father did. He decided to say, no, I don't want. So he decided to be what we call a refractaire. So it's somebody who said no, saying no, he was going to be arrested. So he moved out of Paris and he joined the resistance. So Paris, consequences of that, Paris is going to be a city which is full of old men, very young kids and women, and without resources. So it's going to be a very tough time. And if I show you Notre Dame now, it's because I wanted to show you the image of Notre Dame at the time of the war. And Notre Dame at the time of the war was like that. So you see, the door that I show you now, they were covered by sandbags and they were protecting the stained glasses in case of bombing. But they were also protecting their own troops because Notre Dame, that you may be surprised, but Notre Dame at that time wasn't at all anymore a church, used as a church, but it was used as a dancing place. So it means the Nazi officer were having party inside Notre Dame. And so they were also putting the sandbags to protect their own soldiers, which were into the cathedral. And you see where I am right now. I'm in front of I'm in the front of Notre Dame. Okay, we're going to speak about that building in a couple of minutes because that's what I call the Fort Alamo. And you see, there is a little bridge here. I'm going to show you another image to show you what's going to happen 50 months later after I took that image. Let me show you. Let me find the pictures. Sorry, it's upside down, but I can change it on. Here you go. You see, Notre Dame is going to be the place where we are going to have the battles. And the Battle of Paris is going to be in front of Notre Dame for couples of days. So I just wanted to explain you. We have got three periods of that. We have got the first period. We have got the Nazi which are arriving. Then we have got a government, which is a puppet government, which is following the orders of the Nazi, which take the power. Then we have got a shadow government, which is in England, led by General de Gaulle. And we have got some people which are resisting in France, and we have got some peoples which are going to England to create the French army, the French Free Army. So that's going to be the situation. And for the civil in Paris, they are going to live in the fears of the noise of a car. Why that? Because as the Parisian didn't have any more cars, when the Parisian were hearing the noise of a car, it was, of course, obligatory. It was a car from German or from the police, meaning you were under the danger to have to be arrested. So the people, when they were at home and they were hearing the noise of the car, and that the noise of the car was stopping next to their doors, they were thinking they come to arrest me. So I just want you to feel how the Parisians were suffering of lack of food, suffering of lack of heat, suffering of fears to be taken by the German, suffering to be arrested, to be shot in the street, suffering. And 4 years later, we are in June 1944, it's going to be the D-Days. And that's going to be so important. D-Days mean the Allies troops arrived in Normandy. French, Canadian, British, American, Polish, and some other. They all arrived to Normandy. Normandy is located somewhere over there. Okay, you have to go a bit for. You have to sell. Let's say 3 hours, and you will arrive to Normandy if you do that to the D-Day. So for Paris, it's mean since the 6th of June, we think okay, just the time for the Allies to arrive to Paris, and we are going to be free. But the American generals, which was in charge of the American troops to go to Germany. So this American corps, the 4th Infantry Division, was led by an American general named Bradley, or Gujana, thanks to his service. So was named Bradley. And Bradley said, well, but Paris, it just uh, not a stink. Sorry, yeah, just an ink point on a map, meaning it has no strategic interest. Meaning we don't need to go to Paris. We need to go quickly to Germany. And I don't want to lose soldiers in the Battle of Paris when we are going to fight the rest of the German army. So he said to de Gaulle, we are not going to Paris. And de Gaulle said, well, that's not possible. If you don't go to Paris, that's going to be crazy. Yes, Omar Bradley, absolutely. And so he wrote that in his memory. So, you can check what I tell you in his book, in his autobiography, and his in memories. So the French were waiting, the Americans, which have been landing in Normandy, and they were waiting and nothing was happening. But finally, the 18th of June, the troops moved and they were in the south of Paris. So let me show you a map for you to understand what I mean. So, oh no, that's not the one I wanted to show you. Sorry, it's not the correct image. Sorry for that. So, what I wanted to explain you, the troops were in the south of Paris, okay, and in the south of Paris, they were something like 40 kilometers, 30 miles south of Paris. So what happened when the resistance heard that? The resistance said we start a general strike. So the 18th of August 1944, everything stopped in Paris. Okay, everything. There was no underground, no buses, no electricity people. Everything stopped. All the services stopped. Paris was in the blackout, which was of course slowing down the German troops. The 19th of August at 6 a.m., 2,000 resistance crossed that bridge and arrived to this building, which is the headquarters of the police station in Paris, where were located something like thousands policemen, which were all under the orders of the Nazis. Some of these policemen were working with the resistance. So they opened the door of the building and the resistance went inside the building. When the chief of the police saw the resistance in the building, he asked to the policeman to shoot on the resistance because he was considering them like, traitors and terrorists, if I can say. But the policeman refused to shoot on the resistance. And they say, it's finished now. We have been serving and respecting the orders. Now it's over. So the policeman decided to turn the weapons against the chief of the police, who has been killed. And the building has been taken by the resistance and by the police to attract all the Nazis. So you have to understand the Nazis were in the right bank. So they were the other side of the river. They were that side of the river. Here we've got the river, and here we have got the left bank. So what the resistance are going to do? They are going to make barricades all over the left bank and all over the bridges to avoid the Nazis to be able to go from the north of Paris to the south of Paris, because the Allies were in the south. So it was important for the resistance to block them. And they are going to, you see, put barricades like this one all over Paris, blocking them. I'm going to show you where that barricade was exactly located. And you are going to understand what I mean by blocking the streets and blocking the bridges. The barricade was exactly located here. And it was named a little fortress. In French, we say a little fortress, we name it a fortin. So it means it was kind of strong place to avoid the Nazi to take the main street to go to the south of Paris. And you see, you've got here a plaque, which is explaining you that here, you see, from the 19th to the 25th of June, 1944, we have got the volunteers, like you can see on this image, this lady with her helmet, a German helmet, okay? Or the guy with his suit, which are fighting against the Nazi. They are going to be here. And of course, we have got 3 resistants who died exactly where I am now by stopping the Nazi to pass. So you see, here you find a lot of plaques like that in Paris, but that one is for the barricade that I've just showed to you on the image here. So it means they were standing like that, they were blocking the street behind the sandbags, and they were shooting on the Nazis, which were the other side of the street. That was immediately the 19th of June. And the resistance were in the big building, which is in front of me. Meaning, I'm going to try to pass by that street. I've got a low signal at the beginning, but it's going to be better after. So, all this part of Paris is very difficult for the Germans to come in, because this is the Latin Quarter. And in the Latin Quarter, you've got a lot of narrow streets. So when you want to block a narrow street, it's very easy. So the whole center of Paris was blocked by barricades, avoiding the Nazi to be able to come from the north to the south. So you think immediately the Allies are going to come and they are going to cross the borders of Paris and they are going to arrive in Paris. Okay, that's what is immediately what you think. Look, the narrow streets like this one. You see, it's very, very narrow. And of course, here, if you put sandbags and men, of course, it's very easy to block and to defend the position. Oh my God, Jen, that's so poor. My granny's sister, she married a GI, and she went to America with him, and she lived and she died in America. having kids with the American GI, and she was living in Illinois. And so she was my she was my auntie from America, and she came back to France two times. And I still have got some family in Illinois. So, um, so the resistance were blocking all this part of Paris, and in the big building that we've seen, they were fighting against the Germans because, of course, as soon as the Germans got to know that the resistance took the building, they wanted to take it back. And the resistance have got ammunition that not for not for weeks or months. They have just ammunition for couples of days. So the Germans start making the siege of this building, and the resistance were hoping that the Allies were going to cross the borders of Paris and were going to enter Paris. But that didn't happen. Bradley said, we are going to leave the resistance fight with the Nazi, and when the Nazi are going to be very weak, then we will attack Paris. So 19th of June, nothing happened. 20th of June, nothing happened. 21st of June, nothing happened. We were still putting barricades. We were still fighting with the Nazi. 22nd of June, nothing happened. 23rd of June, the resistance sent a message to the troops which were based, the Allied troops which were based in the south of Paris, and say, we have got 1 day more of ammunition. A lot of people are wounded. Also, we are lack of food. So if you don't come now, we are going to have to ask for a ceasefire to the Germans. That would have been terrible, because if that was happening, it means that the Nazi could go down to the south and attack the troop in the south. So General Leclerc, who was under the order of General de Gaulle, decided to send some troops to scout if the Germans were really resisting in the south of Paris and if there was a real danger for the army. The scout came back saying there is no big army. We found some German and we just killed them, and so it's the road is open to Paris. So Leclerc said to Bradley, we have to go. But Bradley was very stubborn and he said, no, I don't want to go. So finally Leclerc decided on the 24th, I send my troops, the French troops. So what was the force? What was the quantity of soldiers? Let me show. That's the troops which are in the Battle of Paris, which is going to start. So first, you see, you've got the 4th Infantry Division, which is more or less 15,000 soldiers. Then you've got the 4th Française Libre, so it's in the French Free Army, another 15,000 soldiers. On the other side, you've got the resistance from the FTP and the FFI, which are in Paris, and you have got against that something like 25,000 Germans with a troop of the Waffen SS. So it was very well balanced, and it means it could have been a long battle. So the 24th of June, Leclerc decided to disobey the order and send his troop to Paris and to enter to Paris. So Bradley finally said, okay, we follow you, but we don't enter first. We leave the French enter first. So in the night of the 24th of June, the first tank from the French army entered by the south of Paris, by the street we have been, and went to attack the Hôtel de Ville, which is over there. They took the Hôtel de Ville, they arrested the German, then von Schlotitz, which was the German guy in charge of Paris, asked for a ceasefire. On the 25th of August, Paris was taken. When I say it like that, it sounds very simple, but you can imagine it hasn't been. And you see here, in Place Saint-Michel, you've got plaque like this one on the fontaine, which add to the memories of the French, of the FFI, the resistance, and the inhabitants of the 5th and 6th district who have fought on this battlefield and who died for that. And you have got, of course, all over the district, plaque like that of people who died on the barricade, like I show you. I show you one plaque. You see, you've got another one here. For instance, here you see there is a, it's a Robert Gauthier, étudiant, so student, who was fighting in the FFI, so the resistance, fall with honor for the freedom of Paris, the 25th of August 1944. He was 21 years old. So when the troops arrived, in fact, they directly went to the headquarters of the Nazi, and they took over the headquarters. And the Nazi decided to ask for, I said, the ceasefire. The 25th, the rest of the army arrived. On the 26th of August, De Gaulle is going to be able to make another speech to say Paris is free. Let me make you listen that speech if I can find it. If I can find it. That's the speech of De Gaulle that he made the 26th of August to say Paris is free. Paris finally is out of the German. On the 28th, we have finished, if I can say, the battle because there was some soldiers which were still resisting. So now I have to come back to the details of that history, because if I say it like that, it sounds so simple. So this this German man von Schlotitz, who was at the head of the German army, why suddenly he decided to ask for a ceasefire when he had with him 25,000 German soldiers? Moreover, all the bridge of Paris, all the monuments of Paris, like Notre Dame, like Montmartre, like the Eiffel Tower, like everything, had dynamite underneath. Because Hitler gave the order that if I lose Paris for any reason, in that case, I prefer that you blew it up. So the Germans were putting under each bridge and under each monument dynamite, and they were just waiting the order of von Schlotitz to blow up Paris. Von Schlotitz never did it. And von Schlotitz asked for a ceasefire. Why did he do that? Because he thought that he was going to be vanquished, and he didn't want himself to be the man who destroyed Paris, and he didn't want to die simply at that. So he made a secret deal with Bradley and the headquarters of the Allies to say, if I don't blow up Paris and if I ask for a ceasefire, I want you to treat correctly my soldiers, and I want myself that you don't consider me as a war criminal. And that's going to happen. And that's going to be, in a sense, also not very nice, because von Schlotitz, he was the Boros of Netherlands. He's the one who killed all the Jews in Netherlands. And during the time he was in Paris, he's the one who sent all the Jews to the death camp. Of course, he didn't do it by himself, but he had soldiers who did it, and he was the man who was in charge of Paris. So he's the man who organized under his name the sending the troops, the Nazi the Jewish to the death camp. But finally, in Nuremberg, when we have got the trial of Nuremberg, he's the only high rank officer who hasn't been judged as a war criminal and who hasn't been condemned to death. All the other high rank Nazi officers have been condemned to death in Nuremberg. Only one was not, it was von Schlotitz. And so von Schlotitz survived to the war. He has been condemned to life jail and he's died at home. He died at home. You know, it sounds quite incredible, but it's the truth. So the second thing, what is important, so more than 20,000 of the German soldiers which were in Paris were not very good soldiers. They were mainly administrative people which were ruling the administration of France and Paris. And for large part of them, they never fought before, you know. So von Schlottis knew also that his troops were not the best one to fight. So then if we come back to the history of the battle. Also, we always say the Allied troops came to Paris. In fact, to be honest, the first troops which entered Paris with a French flag on their uniform were not French. And I want here to give a tribute to the Spanish, because the Spanish, it was troop of the Foreign Legion, which were only it was only Spanish soldiers who were fighting before in the war of Spain, and after Franco took the power, they joined the French army because they wanted to fight against the enemy of Franco. And so these troops were named the Nueve. It was in fact the ninth division of the French army. And so ninth in Spanish it's said Nueve. So it was called the Nueve division. It was led by a French officer, but the soldiers were only Spanish. So the troops which entered the first in Paris, the troops who took over the city hall were in fact Spanish troops. So give a tribute just to remember it's them who arrived first. And the next day, when the troops decided to parade, and you spell the name of the general von Schlottis, it's VON CH Schlo CHLOTIZ. Maybe I forget the letters because I just try to make it as much as I can, but maybe I forget the letters. Von Schlottis. And you see here, now I'm back in front of the building. So you see that building, I call it Fort Alamo, because you have to imagine that during 6 days, men, women, and kids, because some of them were just teenagers, have been resisting to the whole German army in Paris. The German troops were arriving by this street and they were shooting on this building. And from the window of this building, they were shooting back. And when you look here, for instance, you see on the walls of the building, which is in front of that building, you are going to see a lot of impact from balls. You see, like here, you see, you are going to find a lot of bullet impacts that have been kept from the liberation of Paris. All what you see, it's not damaged by the time, but it's impact of bullets. And when you look at the building, you are going to see that the building have got impact of bullets like that. You see everywhere on the building. You see here, here, and everywhere like that. Why that? It's, as I said, it's because the resistance were located here and were shooting where I am located now, where the Nazi was located. Okay? And I want also to give a tribute and also want to say something which was very important, the day of the liberation of Paris. When we have got the military parade on the Champs-Élysées. It was important that we made that parade because that parade was a kind of a symmetry of the parade made by the Nazi when they made the parade in June 40 after they invaded Paris. So when we made that parade in August 1944, that's also something very important. We have got at that time a new game of politics which was in the world. there was a communist which were in the east. In America, there was also a political, if I can say, important deal with a communist. There was also, of course, still some segregation, and in fact, for the TV, they said that please don't put any soldiers for the parade which are not white Caucasian. So if you look every pictures of the parade in the streets of Paris for that day, you won't find any dark color face because all the pictures needed to show the victory of the white Caucasian. That's something very important because it's on the side of the battle, but it's also part of the politic games which is going to happen after the Second World War. And I'm going to show you here a very rare image. Sorry, it's upside down. And that the only image that we have, I put a circle around it, that the only image that we have from black soldiers, which is in the streets of Paris. You know, there is no press correspondent, so maybe there is people who did pictures, but there is no press correspondent who made this kind of pictures and who broadcast these images. So check. You can check on Google, you can check on YouTube, you can check on whatever you want. You will see that it's only white Caucasian for the parade. And also after the liberation of Paris, it's also going time of revenge. So it's mean, as I said, maybe 10% of the French resisted, but suddenly 50% of the Parisians decided they were resistant. So they quickly put a French flag on their arms and they start going in the streets and they start, saying, "Oh, this one is not a good one," or "This lady has having a sex affair with German." Every time we had a lady who was accused to get a sex affair with a German during the war, she has been, the hair has been cut to make her bald, and then they tattoo on her front an staviska, so the Nazi cross, on the front of the lady, and then they have to parade in the streets of Paris, bald with a staviska tattoo on the front, in underwear, and in the middle of the crowd where the crowd were shouting at them. And for the men, they were immediately executed. So after such a terrible things, also terrible other things was going to happen. And this is, if I can say, the side of the story or the backstage of the history, but that's also part of the history. So to summarize what I have told you today, Paris has been occupied from June 40 to August 44. And the 19th of August 44, we start attacking and taking the headquarters of the police station, and we put barricade in all the bridge to avoid the Nazi to cross from north to south and to go to attack the troops which were there. On the 24th of August, the first French armored vehicle came to Paris and they freed the city hall. Von Schlotitz asked for a ceasefire. The 25th, we consider that the Battle of Paris is over. The 26th, we've got the parade. The 20th, we consider Paris is completely free. So it was in a very short time. And I want to finish this tour to show you some images that has been taken by my family. Thank you for your tip, by the way, Linda and Darby, because of course it's a tip supported tour. So thank you for that. We are not that numbers, so it's well appreciated. Thank you for that. And yes, you see, this is pictures taken by my family. I put them together because part of my family was in Paris. The sister of my father, my aunt, was living in Paris, and they took these pictures of you see people which are arrested in the street, an armored vehicle and things like that. And so I just wanted also to share with you these images because it's interesting for you to see not the press images, but the image taken by the real people in Paris. So my friends, I hope you enjoy this tour about the Battle of Paris and the freedom of Paris, and you learn a little bit more about the history, the big history, with the fourth division, with Leclerc, with de Gaulle, with von Schlotitz, and also the small history or the side history of how the battle took place, and also what the consequences of the battle, and how the people resisted or how the people didn't resist it. Okay, and also the political point that was behind the battle, and France after that, when it's going to be free, de Gaulle is going to make a government, and it's going to be a shared government between de Gaulle and the communists. And it's going to be the first time that we are going to have got the right and the left, which are going to be together in the same government. Because, of course, the freedom of France, during the battle, large part of the people were in favor of the communists and in favor of Stalin. And the rest were in favor of London and in favor of de Gaulle. So France was split. France was split in different community groups. Some were more rightish, more de Gaulle. Some were more lefty, more communist. And so the government was exactly like that. And you know what's happening in America too? After that, it's going to be Hoover and the hunt of the communists and things like that. So what's happening here in Paris, and how the American, the people from the propaganda wanted the image of the white Caucasian, all that is part of this political point, which are always behind the big story, the big history. Thank you, my friends. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you learned a little bit more about, as I said, about Paris and the history of Paris. And well, I have got plenty of tours this week, so I hope you can see all of them. And because there is 4 more tours, if I'm correct. And next week we will start with a tour about. Thank you, LS. Mr. Foucault was the moderation. Mom was 13 when Nazi came. Always said that she wishes to be in that resistance to love the day. Yeah, great, Linda. So thank you so much, my friend. I'm going to wish you a very nice day. Nice day for LS, for instance, because she's in California, or for the one which are in England or in Europe like me, it's going to be the evening. So a nice day, a nice afternoon, or a nice evening according to for where you are. Do you think my nose is red? Like if I drink? Yeah, it was very, very sunny today, and I've been in the street all the day long with my guests, so maybe I took a little bit of sun. Anyway, thank you so much. Take great care of yourself, and see you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye.